What is up, you guys? It's your girl Yinsu here for Upcomer, and we're back again for another episode of Showstopper, and we have something very special in store for you guys today. But before we get into that, let me introduce my lovely and a smug co-host, who I believe won't be so smug today. Tyler, welcome back.
Thank you, Yinsu. It feels once again to be, North American champions, Sentinels. We still Berlin's in the future. I'm still just basking in the glow. I'm kind of fearful, though. NBK announced he's switching to Valorant, so we'll get into that and much more. The European supremacy might be upon us. And to talk about roster moves and roster shuffle, there could be only one man we could bring on, Yinsu. It is our own Adrian Wojnarowski, you're European, so more of the Fabrizio Romano of Valorant. We have George Geddes himself, the insider of Valorant Esports, joining us today. How you doing, buddy? You've had a very busy few weeks breaking almost every single story in Valorant.
Yeah, it has been very tough. It's been very busy. I think some people on the Reddit are like saying I'm like the Woj of Valorant, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know who that was at first. So I had to research and figure out it was like some NA insider guy. I didn't have a clue who he was, to be honest.
Yeah, you're like Fabrizio Romano, the Italian soccer, the football guy.
Yeah. George is also a Zoomer with us boomers here, so I feel like
I'm too young for all this.
You are too young for all this stuff.
You're the TMZ of Valorant, George. You're the news breaking source of the Zoomers.
Yeah, basically. I think that is definitely a compliment. But usually we would have a Roadstar tier list here, but today we have to do something different because we've got you here with us, George, and as Tyler said earlier, you broke so many transfer news during the offseason. So with that in mind, we have a few questions for you, and I want to get your thoughts on the good, the bad, the ugly, the best business that was done throughout this season, and just your opinion on how everything went. So I'm going to start off with a pretty easy one. So from the time that I guess Stage 2 ended here in Europe to 2 days ago when Stage 3 started, what in your opinion was the best transfer in Europe? Which team do you feel like picked up the best player?
I mean, it's really hard to say. I think G2 look a lot better. I know a lot of people were saying how in scrims when they first started, they were using Yoru and agents like that. It was a bit confusing when I was speaking to some players. But it turns out they've really found their groove. I think Heretics are probably on the opposite end of that spectrum. Initially, I thought G2 and Heretics were sort of on the same level, but it looks like I think G2 have sort of come out ahead. I think they're coming with something to prove. I think the transition from Mixwell has been especially important for me. I think he's a very, very talented player, and I think he just needed the right squad around him. And I think that was probably the best move so far. If I was to consider all European moves, I'd probably say G2 looks the best right now.
So speaking of European transfers, George, I mean, this wasn't scheduled in our pre-planned meeting, but I think we have to touch on it because NBK, the famous French player, one of the most decorated players in Counter-Strike history, just announced his, transfer from CSGO to Valorant. Have you heard anything about where he might be going? Is he going back to OG? Is he going to be just kind of waiting in the wings, waiting for, teams to fall out of qualifiers to talk to them? What's up to date to NBK? Because I feel like he's going to be a very big talking point in the European scene for months and years to come, possibly.
Yeah, I think it depends really what NBK actually wants to do, because obviously he's known to be an in-game leader in CS, but he's also known to just frag out. It really depends on what role he wants to do. I think in EU especially, there is sort of a necessity for in-game leaders. They aren't really easy to come by. Fnatic have got Boaster, Liquid have got, I believe Link is, or Cryptix is IGLing on that team. So
quasi.
It's a bit sort of touch and go with that team. I think Sliggy with the coach is really knowledgeable. So honestly, I think NBK wouldn't be able to settle with anything other than tier 1. So realistically, if he was to go to a team, I would want him to go to Team Liquid, personally.
Oh, yeah.
I think Team Liquid are a team right now where they are at that upper echelon, but they need that sort of boost to get where they need to be, right? I think they need that sort of little bit of oomph, that little, that X factor to get to the next stage. I think, I don't know about which player you would remove in this sense, because Link has played very well, same with Cryptix. But I think it would have to be one of them for MBK, in my opinion. I know MBK has called in English before, I believe. So, I mean, I don't see the problem with that. He
did it on OG.
Yes, I mean, he's a very talented player. And speaking of OG, obviously they signed a bunch of new players recently. So I don't know how likely it is that he will go back to OG. I think it's very unlikely. But speaking of players that did play with OG, Issa, he played with OG Valorant for a while. That move never panned out. So there have been these players that have tried to move to Valorant. It's just never really panned out. And the problem is that there's sort of this oversaturation already with players. With a bunch of young talent, with a bunch of players that have already solidified themselves within teams. Because many organizations wanted to get in as early as possible. So, now he's coming in a bit late. So, I don't know when he's going to get a team. I haven't heard anything personally of him playing with any players or, anything like that. I think, maybe if Alex wanted to make the move, them two could start a squad, I think time will just tell, really.
I'm a little bit mad at him because I'm like, why didn't you announce this before roster lock and stuff when people can still bring you in? Because I want to see him play so badly. But hold on, George, hear me out. If he goes to Liquid, why not just bring back Existence? Why not just bringing Shocks as well a little bit if he wants to switch, and we get the whole gang back together? Woo!
Let's bring Kenny S too. It just,
I mean, that's just a recipe waiting for disaster. Really. I mean, putting Scream, NBK, Kenny, Jesus Christ, Shocks.
I think we throw in Existence, Shocks, Schmitt, and we just get the team back together. I mean, it'd be like 2013 all over again.
See, the problem is like these French and Belgian players, because they've played with each other for so many years in CS, there have always been these rumors that some players didn't like playing with each other, or, they just didn't get along well. They didn't really gel very well as a team. After a while, they always sort of crumble. So, this is why I am hesitant to put him into a team like Team Liquid. But, if I do see him joining one, it would be probably someone on that tier. I don't see Fnatic making any changes. I don't know why you'd remove Boaster. I mean, I'd consider Boaster probably one of the best IGLs in Europe right now. So. Also,
his kind of his stock in terms of popularity is so high, right? Like he's the face of the team. He's the face of European Valorant right now. Scream. So
yeah. So there aren't really a lot of teams where he can go. Like there's not a lot of options in Europe.
And NA too. I mean, he tweeted at me. He tweeted me, "Why not NA? NA looks pretty good right now." He said so.
I mean, NA. I think will probably be the better move, to be honest. I think North America they are also in the same situation as Europe. They need IGLs. This is the problem. We have teams like T1 who don't have dedicated IGLs, T1 I know is playing with Curry as their IGL, and he IGL'd for like a while, I believe, on a previous team. But again, there's no dedicated in-game leaders anymore. They removed Dazed. So this is the problem. In-game leaders are so hard to come by because Valorant is, it's a lot tougher. And it's much more difficult to call in than CS. So, in my opinion, from what I can see. So, I don't know where he's going, but I think North America would be the better move.
Yeah, I think finally just putting a bookend on the NBK discussion is that I mean, it is kind of sad he's not going to be here most likely for the Stage 3 qualifiers, but doesn't it leave this very interesting kind of period where he becomes like the ultimate mercenary for the last chance qualifiers, right? Like if you're a team on the cusp of the last chance qualifiers, you have one chance left to make it to champions, and you have this guy who is, one of the most decorated CSGO players of all time waiting for you. Like he could get a big payday from a team like a T1. Let's say T1 qualifies for the last chance qualifier, and they need that voice to kind of lead the troops into, this final chance to make it to the biggest, tournament in Valorant history, the first one ever. Why not, pay NBK a giant ransom to IGL for, a month to see if you can get to, champions and beyond. So I think, as you said, I think NA has deeper pockets for most of the teams, nothing about, G2, but I think, NBK to NA or another European team will probably happen in the next coming months, and I'm sure George will be the one who breaks it. But let's moving over from Europe to NA. We asked about the best EU transfer. What was the best NA transfer during the roster shuffles, George, in your opinion?
I think I'm a little biased with this one because I've always been a fan of a player called Zekken. He's not really the most known player. He's sort of been under the radar. He's sort of played in the tier 2. He played for Noble. But he's a really, really solid player. And him going to Exet alongside Def, obviously former Counter-Strike player, Yinsu, Tyler, I'm sure you're both aware of him. Incredible IGL, played for Complexity. He was a very, very good in-game leader in CS, and now he's moved to Valorant. Obviously was on the Dignitas roster and now moved to Exet. From what I can tell, that roster has been playing quite well. I think Zekken as a player is a very, very talented prospect. He's very young, 16 or 17 years old, one of the two. And he's one of those players where you can tell he's a very fiery kind of player. He really wants to get up there. He really, he's a very mature player as well, which is not that common. I think maturity is something that not a lot of players actually have. But from Zekken, I could tell he's a very mature player. And he's still a kid, he's still a teenager, so he's got a lot of room to grow. And with an IGL like Def to actually be there and help him develop and help him get better, I would say that would probably be the best move. I think in terms of other good moves, I think the Bang move was good as well for CSM. The removal of Brax, I know sort of caught a lot of people off guard, but realistically, Brax is one of those players where he's very, very talented, but he's not, I wouldn't say he's the best at sort of being this aggressive entry player, goes in, kills everyone. He's more of the sort of laid back, likes to get his frags, likes to sort of play with his team, these kinds of things. And it's a very different play style to Bang, and Bang is sort of this in-your-face kind of rush and gun kind of player. And I think that was probably what TSM needed, alongside the likes of like Wardell, Sabrosa, etc. So I think TSM and Exet have done the best business, in my opinion, I would say. I don't think Brax got a fair shot, hence why I think T1 also did some good business. So I think you can see where I'm going with this. I think T1 also did some quite good business during the offseason. The promotion of Dawn was a little bit skeptical for me. He's not really been the most proven player. Obviously, coming from T1 Academy, you can't really play against the best in the region when you're playing for an Academy roster, just because of the level of the players, just naturally. So I think that left a lot to be desired, but I think Brax coming into the team, Spider dropping out because of health issues, I think he will be coming back to the roster eventually. I'm not 100%, but I would say T1, except TSM, I would say they did the best business.
It's so weird talking about transfers in NA when you compare it to its sister game, League of Legends, where it's like, it feels like there's so many good young talent, like 15, 16, 17-year-olds, all of anime avatars in NA, and they just keep popping up. There's Bang, there's Zekken. I mean, there's more too. There's so many good young players on the NA server that Europe will gain supremacy. We all know Europe will be coming. It's going to win some titles. They're probably going to win some world championships. It's Europe. They know how to shoot people in the head. They come from CSGO. We know it. But I have to say, it is very uplifting that NA just isn't just all former CS pros. It's not all just old over-the-hill CS pros who are just dominating the game. We have so much good young talent. A lot of that is coming from Counter-Strike, but we see, I think the thing that's really promising about NA is that there's a lot of young May talent right now in NA. And I think that's going to continue growing because the popularity of the game in North America is huge. Canada, America, both to the top, regions or countries playing the game. So Europe's going to have its supremacy, but it is a really good sign that there's so many just good young talent coming through the pipeline of NA.
I mean,
teams are giving them a chance.
Yeah, I mean, all your players have already switched from CS. You're running out of CS players to switch. That's why
we still
you're not
keep
seeing them.
We still got Stewie and them. We got Twist. We still have our top of the line champagne waiting for us if we really need to break the emergency. We still got Stewie and Twist. We're waiting on it. When Europe wins a title, that's when we call on Stewie to come save us.
Yeah,
we're just waiting.
I could see that. I could see that. But I mean, on the other side of this now, George, because it does feel like it's been a lot of teams have done really, really well. But over here in Europe, some of these roster moves don't always work out. So in your opinion, what was a questionable transfer for you? What do you feel like it was maybe a bit of a waste?
I think the OG moves were a bit strange for me because I think when I look at a player like Shed and when I look at a player like Fizzy, these two players were linked with OG. I think you have two solid players right there, and instead they sort of cut them both off and they decided not to go with them and then picked up different players instead. And they looked quite good, OG, during the Open qualifier, and then I believe they lost to Finest. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they lost. Yeah. So I would say OG probably have done some of the worst business, in my opinion. I think not getting Shed, especially when he played for No Poach, or when he was playing for No Poach during the qualifier, I think he looked quite solid. So I would say that was probably quite a big miss. Obviously, Heretics as well, I think probably needs a bit more time. I really don't know about that roster. But honestly, I would probably say OG. When I look at these teams, I honestly just think, like, you have a lot of talent to pick from, but did you choose the right talent? Do you know what I mean? That's sort of the problem that I'm coming across. But I think XL did some good moves as well. I think, they're just starting. But again, it's like, I don't know if we're just recycling the same players over and over, hoping for a new result kind of thing, right? Because, are they going to be the new players that help you qualify? Are they going to be these new talents that help you sort of get into challenges, get into the playoffs, these kinds of things? I really don't see it happening.
I think the problem I had with XL is I think Mo's a great pickup. I think if it weren't for the fact that Durka is probably one of the best players in the world, then I don't think Mo would have left. Like, you would you'd have to bench the majority of European players for someone like Durka. I think most teams would. But my issue is I think Mo needs like an existence or an angel, because he still has a couple of rough edges, but I think he's a diamond. But I don't know if they could have gone with someone else that would have at least harnessed that. Like you said, maybe Def. Like Def is such a great pickup because he has the power to also make other players better on his team. And I really would have loved to see XL or maybe OG to an extent pick up that strong figure that has that.
You have Eccles, right?
That. Oh,
Eccles is a free agent.
I mean, the fact that he's a free agent blows my mind.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like that No Poach roster is just full of talent. You have like Ozzy, Eccles, Shed, all these kinds of players, and none of them are being picked up by any of these teams. Like, I'm so confused,
I mean, Ozzy not being on a team is actually a travesty.
It's ridiculous. Like he came in, stood in for G2, played quite well, and now he's like not even on a team. It's outrageous, honestly, especially Eccles. I think Eccles is arguably one of the best IGLs in Europe, up there with like the boasters of the world, and and the fact that he's not on a team, I think is absolutely outrageous. I think is stupid, in my opinion.
It's sad. My no fish boys are the fish 1, 2, 3. I mean, they're thriving. Yeah. They're thriving. Most of them are, but Eccles, the captain, still trying to find his new home. Going from EU to NA again. What was the most baffling NA decision you saw? There was many moves, many drops, many pickups. What was the NA decision that you were kind of scratching your head? Why team? Why?
Honestly, it would be difficult for me because I think overall North America made some pretty good moves, but I think I would say the two that really stood out for me would be Evil Geniuses.
Yes,
I know it's a bit of a thing to sort
of
like criticize them, but removing Alex and Oasis, I think was probably the stupidest moves you could have ever made. Like, I'm just going to say it flat out. I genuinely believe dropping Alex and Oasis is probably one of the worst moves of the year. And I know a lot of people criticize players like Potter and all those that are still on the team. But again, you can criticize them, at one angle, but then just removing them flat out, removing your best players, it makes no sense to me, honestly. It honestly doesn't. So I don't know what's next to that roster. Obviously, they've been playing okay. I think they've played like 13 maps now, I think, and they've won the majority of them. I think Roka's a very good player. He's obviously a duelist now.
Yes.
Came from CS. He played very well. I believe he was on like Echo Fox like years ago. So Roka's a very good player. So I think that's a good pickup. But even so, I think Alex and Oasis both deserve a really, really good team. So I think watch out for them both, definitely, for Challengers too, for sure.
Yeah, the Alex move was so interesting because he was on Moon Raccoons, and Moon Raccoons were the hot, amateur team about 4 or 5 months ago, where everyone's like, "Oh my God, Alex, he's so good. He's the ace of this like amateur team. He's gonna get a tier 1 org, and he's gonna just blast off into like Asuna, Asuna, Leaf, kind of this young gun territory." And then EG picks him up, and everyone's like, "Awesome! Like one of the biggest orgs in NA. Alex is gonna be their star." Goes on this EG roster. EG doesn't do well. You can pinpoint where those, what are the weak links, what have you. But it's the org which puts the team up, in front of the masses who they're playing, and the team just didn't work out. Alex still put on pretty good performances from what I saw of EG, but now EG seems like they're wallowing in like tier 3, tier 4, where I think there's just so much good talent in NA right now, and there's so many orgs who are willing to build teams that you can't be the 20th best team in the region. Like you have to have the best roster available. Like it's really mind-boggling. Alex, I still think, is an excellent player, and I hope he gets another chance, right? And that's the sad thing about being like a game like Valorant, right? Where if you're a young player, you might get 1 or 2 shots at the big leagues, and then you just kind of get the tag on you that you were bad, right? Like he now has a bit of baggage where it's like, oh, he was on EG, that team wasn't good. He must have been part of the problem. And I'm sure if you actually look at the game, it's like Alex wasn't the weak link here. There was, not chemistry issues, what have you. There just weren't, a great team. But that's the scary thing, right? Where it's like Asuna. For every Asuna, I think there's 10 young players who just don't get the shot or are just on the wrong team, just fall out of relevance, right? And that's the scary thing.
Now, George, if we combined all of the regions, feel free to, think about some of the smaller ones as well if you want. What would you say is the most underrated pickup? So like a piece of business, and that might not look that great on paper, but maybe a team picked up a game-changing player, someone like Magnum or Durka for Fnatic.
I would probably go with, I would say Dazzle and Ban, and I would say Renegade's picking up Jerk. I think he signed during like a few weeks ago as well. He's played very well. But I think the most recent move, I would say Dazzle and Ban. Yeah, definitely. I think those two going to Luminosity, I think they will be very good. I think Ban especially is a very good player. From what I've heard and what I've been, when I've been speaking to people, I believe he will probably be another young talent to watch out for. I think, he's definitely probably a very underrated player. Same with Dazzle. Obviously, Dazzle comes from Ghost. He's been playing quite well as well. Obviously, former CS player as well. So he's got a bit of history and he's got that bit of experience, whereas Ban, isn't really that experienced compared to Dazzle, obviously at the highest level. But I would say probably Luminosity. I would say a lot of people underrate that team. Myself included. I would, I'm not fully convinced on the roster, but I think Luminosity definitely have a good shot.
I actually do like the Luminosity moves quite a bit. Dazzle was a player that I've been keeping my eye on. I think in kind of the Alex kind of role, right, where he, tier 2 team, now getting a shot on a tier 1 team, tier 1, 1.5, what have you. A team that spends quite a bit of money to have a good roster. One of the 15, 20 teams that are doing so. I hope it's a Asuna situation and not an EG Alex situation where he can thrive in this new system and do well. But finally, to end off this segment, I'm gonna give you just a point blank shot, George. We're gonna look at this in 3 or 4 months, maybe even sooner, and we'll either laugh at you or we'll applaud you.
Okay.
So, NBK, the hottest free agent on the market, where does he sign? Predict it right now. Predict it. Where is he going? Where will NBK be taking his talents in the near future?
Where does NBK sign?
Yes.
Oh God, man, this is hard.
I'm gonna say T1. When you brought up T1, I'm gonna go T1. I'm thinking T1. I'm gonna go T1. I'm gonna say T1. I think Joe Marsh is a man who does not like losing. T1 has shown that they will be aggressive in their market approach when they don't see something working, they'll go after it. You need someone with leadership, someone who can shotgun, someone with experience, someone that like Skadoodle will, you need someone that it can come in and garner the respect of a brax and Skadoodle in my mind, and automatic. So I'm going to say NBK to T1. That's my wild, no sources. This is just a shot in the dark. I'm saying T1 NBK.
I just don't think any other European team outside of Liquid can afford him. That's my thinking.
G2 could. G2 could.
I don't
Carlos could.
I don't know. I actually don't know at this point. They spent a lot of money on, their current players already, but I just don't know if anyone could actually afford him. Maybe Tyler's right. I think he goes to NA, George.
I think there's two options in EU. Like you said, Yinsu, I think G2 or Team Liquid, those are really it in EU. I would say just in terms of like who can actually afford him and who he could kind of fit if you replace one player. But I think in terms of North America, it's a wild card. Like he could go anywhere really, other than Sentinels. Pretty much, he could sign for anybody. So, he would still have to be stuck at the tier 1 level. You know what? If 100 Thieves don't make it, I'll say 100 Thieves.
Ooh.
I'll say them, because if a team that needs leadership and a solid player that may actually upgrade the roster, and if they don't make it, I would say 100 Thieves. That's what I would say.
And the big thing is that you need someone who can go to these big teams and garner the respect, right? You can't, if you're going to bring in an IGL, if you're going to bring in a big voice, they have to have the credentials and the swagger and just the aura to take over a team that will, like, if you bring a up and coming IGL in Valorant in front of Nitro and Steel and Hiko, they're going to laugh at you and just say, go play if you're checkers, kid. But if like an MBK, you look at him and say, I can believe in this man. I trust what he says. He knows what he does. He has a long list of awards that many people in Valorant would want to have. So yeah, 100 Thieves is interesting. I'm going to stick with T1. I'm going to say T1 MBK. I'm going to look very smart, hopefully, in a few months.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm going to throw a wildcard in there, because looking at what MBK did with OG, he clearly is also quite well versed on building his own roster. I know him and Alexi B sort of came together and handpicked the players that the original OG CSGO team was formed. So it's not out of the question that some kind of EU org that has maybe been waiting in the dark to try and get into Valorant just picks up him and goes, here's free reign, you pick your team and we'll make it happen. I don't think it's going to be someone like Na'Vi, although that would be...
Na'Vi are building Na'Vi are building CIS.
That would be
they
really
build,
gnarly. Yeah. But who knows? We've been hearing about Rogue Mag Lions at Astralis for about a year now, so we'll see. But we are going to have to move on to our second segment, which is yay or nay. Now today, George, we're going to throw some topics at you, and I want you to tell me if you are all for it. So you are a yay, or you're not for it whatsoever. Yeet that right out of your parameter and you go for a nay. And we're going to start off with competitive Valorant on mobile. Are you a yay or a nay?
I would say yay, mainly because, it would just boost the popularity of the esport in general. I think in terms of I think like COD Mobile, PUBG Mobile, they're all like insanely successful.
Huge.
Yeah. Especially in Asian region, Asian countries. Sorry, it's wildly successful. So yeah, I would say yay on that one.
I think that's a big yay, right? I think two of the biggest regions right now for Valorant are Southeast Asia and India, who are both gigantic mobile gaming regions. So I think I'm not going to be like, hey, Yinsu, let's do a Valorant mobile show in parallel to our regular Valorant Showstopper. But I think it's good overall. It brings more people into the game. Those people who are playing on mobile will be easier to switch to PC when it comes. But yeah, more players playing Valorant, the better. Here's mine, George. What's your opinion on a pick and ban system in Valorant?
Yay, 100%. 1,000,000%. I love pick and ban systems. I think in League especially, they do it very well. It adds that sort of extra level for analysts to sort of go over, especially when it comes to picking agents, sort of removing them. It allows teams to have that sort of further depth, but right now, I don't think it's viable because we just don't have enough agents. Like you'd ban 5 of them, we'd have 5 left, So
it's like, oh man, we had to play Yoru again.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like they'd just ban all the good agents and you'd be left with all the bad ones, right? So I would say for the future, yes. But for right now, nay, I would say then in that case, but definitely please in the future.
Unpopular opinion, but I'm a yay with picks, but a big nay with bans.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to see bans come in. I don't even know if it's gonna how much in the future. Maybe if they release as many agents as they do as Valorant Champions, then yeah, I think bans totally. But I don't know if I want bans, just because I love seeing the innovation some of the teams come up with. Not even with someone like Viper. If we had bans and Viper was just constantly banned out, I think that would just really upset me. And I don't know how the meta would develop with bans, but I think picks, I'm 100% with you. A yay bans. I think I need some convincing.
You could limit the amount of bans, maybe 2 per team, something like that, before they pick their 5 agents. But I'm not sure how Riot would make it work. So
even in a world where we had 1 ban for Iceland, they would have changed the entire tournament, right?
Of course, yeah.
You would have been a lot of teams could have just banned Astra, and I think that would have changed the entire configuration.
Or Jet.
Or Jet. It's the Brazilian teams did not know how to play around Astra. Had zero clue how to play into her. And it was very obvious. If you ban Astra, maybe Team Vikings in their kind of style plays a lot better. I would still pick Sentinels to win that tournament even if you banned Astra, but I think it years down the future. I think we're getting 5 to 6 agents per year. I think that's a good kind of mixture right now. I think pick and ban is a good feature that will come into play maybe 3-4 years from now, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, the next one here, I know, George, you also spoke a little bit about this in the mailbag that you do for Upcomer, but franchising. I'm not talking about soft franchising. I'm talking about hard LCS, LEC franchising. Are you a yay or a nay?
I've got to say, is there an in the middle option?
No.
Okay, right. So I'll say yay, right?
Ooh.
And this is why, right? Because franchising as a whole is usually quite good when it's done by Riot Games, right? I would say that. When it comes to the LCS and the LEC, even the LCK now, they've done it very well. But it's not been this sort of full kind of Overwatch level franchising where it's regional teams, and they're all in their individual states, like the COD League as well. I really don't like that kind of franchising because it sort of makes it seem like it's a sport when it's not a sport, it's an esport. So this is the thing, because I don't think Riot would ever go down that path. I think that would be really silly of them because they know how much impact these organizations have. Why would you force Sentinels to become, I don't know, wherever they're based, the something Sentinels, it'd be pointless, right? Because teams are associated with these brands. Viewers are associated with these brands, right? So it would just be a bit silly to go full on franchising. But I think it's important to have this sort of safety net for teams, and especially players. This is why I wasn't really a fan of this sort of Wild West kind of CS where
can't go full Dota. Don't go full Dota. Don't not go full Dota.
No, I don't like that. I like I like the way Riot does it. I think Riot does it quite well. You can criticize Riot for a lot of decisions they've made, but for Valorant, I think they've probably hit it sort of nail on the head for that one. So I would say whatever Riot does would probably be a good decision, but I think franchising probably next year, just not COD League level and not Overwatch level, please. That's what I would say.
I'm fine with franchising as long as we have 4 international tournaments a year. If we have 3 Masters plus Champions, I am really what would really change, right? We're already we have our NA regionals, we have our EU regionals. If you franchise those, you're pretty much getting the same things, plus you're getting 4 international tournaments a year. As long as we don't go to MSI and Worlds, and that's all you have, plus like an All Stars event. As long as we have the 4 big Grand Slam international events a year, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
All right, my turn. This one's a bit spicy. So all we know, the EMEA region gets 4 slots at the upcoming Berlin Major or the Berlin Masters event. What would you say if Riot tomorrow says we're gonna give EU 2 slots and we're gonna give 1 CIS slot, and 1 Turkey slot? Do you think are you yay or nay on CIS and Turkey getting their own spots at these Masters events and Worlds and Champions?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because we really don't know how these teams actually play against EU teams, right? I know they sort of come up against each other in like qualifiers and things like that, but there's never been a time where we've had this sort of major event where a European team has come up on LAN against a Turkish team, against all these other kinds of sort of mini regions within the CIS. So it's really hard for me to say whether EU and EMEA, should be differentiated as different like regions. So I mean, I would say yay. Just for the fact that I think they sort of deserve it. And I think it would sort of push the best teams to be the ones that go to that event, right? And I think that is the most important thing. And realistically, I think that would probably be for the better. I don't know, if that's like a controversial opinion or something, but I would say I would have to do a bit more research and have a look into sort of the best teams within these regions. But I know Turkish players are incredible. They're actually insane. So
seen that, baby.
Like they'll have no struggle getting there, So
the viewership is the big, boom, right? Like if you add one Turkey, if you give Turkey 1 slot, that's another probably 100K viewers.
I think the major grievances, at least the Turkish players had, because I had a chat with some of them recently, is that they sat at home and watched Masters. They watched Brazil get rolled over. They watched Peru get rolled over. Yeah. They watched Japan get rolled over, and they watched SEA kind of got in the end getting rolled over as well. And I think a lot of them felt like, well, we are a better region competitively than those that I just named. We have more viewers and we have a bigger player base as well. So why is it that for Masters in Berlin, I believe, I think Japan gets 2 slots instead of 1, whereas Turkey get the EU EMEA slot. So I see where they're coming from, because I think if on their day, if you put the BBL team that won First Strike or the Football List team that won Masters 1 against all of the teams I just mentioned, I don't see a world where the Turkish teams don't come out on top,
Probably Vikings level, right? I would say they're probably Vikings level. I think the best Turkish... let's say in a world where Brazil learns Austria exists. Like if they actually learn Astra and stuff, I do think like talent level-wise, I think Brazil and Turkey very even. Like I think those 2 regions very.
I would say Turkey's better.
I would say Turkey's better.
I think right now I would say Turkey. I also if you put in tactics too, I would actually say Turkey is stronger currently. I do think overall Brazil and Turkey will be 2 of the bigger regions in Valorant. But as an NA fan, as an NA reporter, I'm gonna say keep them. Give as little slots to Turkey and EU as possible. Give us more Japan. Give us more Crazy Raccoons. Give us more Brazilian teams who don't know how to play against Austria. We're good.
Yeah, no, I think I'm slightly with George on this one. And also, we can't forget freaking Gambit. It's
insane.
The fact that
They're
we don't
incredible.
get to see the fact that Gambit have to do so much just to get to an international event blows my mind. Yeah, but then again, if you look at the rest of CIS, I think they have 2 or 3 maybe good teams, and then the rest of them I don't think can rival the rest of EU really. So I think that's
just it's the opposite of Turkey, where just no one in CIS cares about Valorant. They care Valve is God in the CIS. So Dota, Counter-Strike, if Riot's gonna have a very difficult time breaching those fortresses of having, with Simple, unless Simple tomorrow says I'm going to Valorant, I don't see any way that CIS, becomes a Valorant region for a very, 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 very long time, if ever.
I mean,
Gambit. It takes years to develop regions, right?
Let's see what
and
Na'Vi can do.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that the majority of CIS players are still playing CS:GO, right? That's sort of, that's where they've always been. It has been CS:GO when they choose an FPS. So, and remember, Valorant isn't that old, right? So, it may take like probably another like 2 years or something, but I think the CIS region will definitely have a lot more infrastructure built in. Obviously, we've even just seen Na'Vi come in as well. So, teams are willing to put resources into this region. It's just whether, it has the player base yet. It's just, it leaves a lot to be desired, right? So they'll probably grow within the next few years. I think it'll be up there as another major region for sure.
It will be indeed. And George, you've gone yay for every single one of the answers. So next time we're gonna have to
positive person, all right?
Yeah.
I like to look at the good things, okay?
We're going to have to throw more controversial things at you next time. But it's time for our cooldown section. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about you and your Valorant journey. So I just want to start off with, obviously during the past off-season, a lot of people have come to know you in the Valorant community, with the news and the transfers you have been bringing to everybody. But of course, before that, you were heavily into Counter-Strike. And I think you were more kind of invested in CSGO. So why Valorant for you, and what is it about the game that's kind of driving you to this title?
Well, I think the main thing is that I sort of just fell in love with Valorant like I did with CS. When I first got into journalism, I was just playing CS just regularly. And I think, when I was first starting, I was just playing with my friends playing CS, and then I sort of fell in love with it, and it was sort of this gradual thing, right? I needed to sort of get my hands on it. And it's honestly been the same with Valorant. I think, I've really enjoyed playing the game, and I think it's a game that has a lot of sort of infrastructure behind it. Riot is a very solid developer when it comes to developing leagues, developing games. If you look at League as the prime example, I mean, even if Valorant doesn't even reach those kinds of numbers, but gets somewhere close, Riot's done a great job, right? So I think I just fell in love with the game, and then I just went from there. I think CSGO right now is in a very sort of tumultuous position. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that one. It's not like I fell out of love with CS or anything like that, but CSGO right now, it needs a lot of, I'd say it just needs a lot of work, right? North America is a region where it's been sort of plucked of all of its resources. Their players are going to Valorant. Some of them are retiring. It's not looking too great, and there needs to be a major overhaul of the system, in my opinion, in CS for it to actually become sort of healthy again. COVID hit it really bad, especially, and I think during the COVID era as well, it sort of made me realize that Valorant for me has been the game that I've just loved more than CS. I like speaking to the people, I like speaking to the players more. It's just been all around better. I think the community have sort of welcomed me as well. So yeah, I would just say I just fell in love with the game and the community. And that's sort of been my driving force behind moving to Valorant, I would say.
I think you kind of touched on it earlier, and why the Call of Duty franchising or the Overwatch League franchising isn't your deal is that, and it's also kind of, I like this as well, is that esports for me has really become an international, it's like the Olympics every day, right? Where you have regions versus regions and these native battles, and like you have your these fandoms of NA versus EU versus Brazil versus Oceania versus Asia. Like there's so many different culture clashes going together. And right now in CS, it's NA is gone. Brazil, Valorant is overtaking, or is seemingly overtaking CS in Brazil. You still have, Furia and, MIBR, but, Riot's going to be doing their work to make Brazil a Valorant region. Asia has become Valorant. Oceania is even Valorant, and they don't even have their own region. They're tied to NA if they ever get their own region. Like right now, it does really much feel like it's a European stronghold, right? And is it really fun to watch the same European teams play against each other in 20 tournaments per year? Not really. I love CS as a game. I think CS currently is a better spectator sport than Valorant. I'll say that flat out. I still think CSGO at its best is better than Valorant at its best, but Riot cares way more than Valve does. So if you're a fan, you're going to be much more invested in, and if you're a player, you're going to be much more trusting of Riot because you know that they're going to do everything in their power to make Valorant the biggest game in the world, where Valve kind of shrugs if something goes wrong with any of their esports because they're so hands off. But anyways, talking about going from your love of Valorant to breaking news in Valorant, everyone's been asking you. I mean, Sue brought this up earlier. How do you go about investigating in the scene? It's such a new scene. There's so many roster moves, so many things going on. What's your daily practice of breaking a big story? If you can give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of George Geddes' newsroom.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot to take in. There's a lot to handle on a regular basis because you sort of get this like information overload. Is you just don't know what's happening, right? Because I get moves where, or I just get told moves due to my source network of things that are just completely wrong, and I just have to go throughout this journey of trying to get it confirmed and then trying to get this denied. These kinds of things, it's very hard. But I think for anyone who wanted to do what I do and they want to become like a reporter, I would say the best advice would be to build a source network and try and do your best to get your name out there where you can sort of speak to these like players, team managers, coaches, everybody. Just speak to everybody you can. And I think that is probably the most important thing you can do. I would say create content that you enjoy to make. I was a news reporter for years before I even turned into an actual, investigative reporter. So, these things take time. But I think building a source network is the most important. And just becoming like a reliable person, I'm not here to like ruin anybody's teams or release like private information. I'm just here to serve the public, and that has always been my job. And I'm also here to help protect players. People say, a journalist can't act like an agent and stuff like that. But, I do like the players. I'm friends with some of the players. I like the game. I like the community. I'm here to make sure that this community thrives and can do the best it can. I think, roster moves and, any information like that is sort of healthy to the scene. Some may argue that knowing like roster leaks and things like that maybe isn't. But I would say it actually does sort of suppose a bit of benefit, especially to organizations that may not be the largest. I think it brings a lot of traction, especially when information gets released before your announcement. I think that does help them. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's controversial. I'm sure some team managers would probably disagree with me. But yeah, so overall, I'd say best thing to do is build a source network, become trustworthy, and try to just produce content that you enjoy, and hopefully the community will enjoy it. Hopefully, players, coaches, team managers, hopefully they all see this, and you get the recognition you deserve, I guess.
I mean, we can't sit here and pretend like some orgs haven't intentionally leaked stuff, right? That is also that's a tactic we see. It happens a lot. And to round everything off today for the last question of our segment. Now, it's a bit of a two-parter. So first, I want to know the favorite Valorant story you've read or you've come across over the last 12 months. And secondly, I want to know what your favorite story was to break, whether it was something bizarre or it was fun to do. We'll go for the first one first. The best story, most enjoyable story you've read.
Ooh, my favorite Valorant story I've read. I mean, probably Boaster in China, to be honest. I'd say that's probably been quite fun to read. I think knowing his impact is actually quite insane because we never really understand the level of interaction these players get, because obviously we're all based in the Western regions. So we don't know what happens in countries like Asia because obviously they use different social media platforms and things like that. So I think that was quite a fun read. Not to toot anybody's horn in this call or anything, but I would say that's already big enough. I'd say that's probably been quite a good read so far. Mm-hmm. And what was the other question? Sorry, like the best story I wrote?
Yeah, or the best story you broke.
Oh, the best piece of news.
What's giving you the most satisfaction of like I just broke the story, boom.
Yeah, mic drop moment.
You mic drop like I got that one. I got it.
Oh yeah, do you know what I know? Probably we did to NRG. Mm-hmm. I would say that's probably been the funnest story to break because nobody knew what was going on with NRG. Like obviously, Daps recently left, so everyone was like, oh, what's going on? Who are they playing with? And literally nobody knew. until like the day he got signed, right? So, you know, and I don't even think he was like practicing on his main account or anything with them. So, because what they do is these teams obviously use, you know, they don't use their real accounts; they use like fake accounts and stuff.
It's so easy to see on like if someone's streaming, it's like, oh, hey, these 5 streamers or these 5 players all streaming together, or they're playing in a custom. Oh, yeah, that's easy. Yeah,
it's really silly. I don't know why pros don't do that. By the way, if they don't want their roster moves to get leaked, I don't know why they use their main accounts. It's so stupid. So yeah, PSA to all the pros: don't use your main accounts when you're scrimming with your new roster. Please don't do that. But even so, yeah, I would probably say the Wadid move to NLG was probably the funnest to break. Yeah.
That was a good one. So I remember that one. I mean, that was also one I don't, because you broke it and people weren't sure, like you said, what was going on. And then when it was confirmed, you were like, I told y'all.
That was the problem.
It was because we did too. Energy was like an old rumor, and like we did like dream was to play on that org. It's like, oh, I want to play on this org more than anything. This is my dream. And then everyone was making rumors about it, and it didn't come true, and it was kind of sad. But now finally, George got to break the story of like, oh yeah, this kid gets to play on the team he's always dreamed of playing on. So that's awesome.
I mean, he deserves it. So he deserves it. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, George, for joining us. You guys at home watching, make sure to give him a follow on Twitter as well, especially during the off season. There's going to be a lot of content on there, and it's going to get pretty spicy. Thank you, as always, to my co-host, Tyler. It's good to have a fellow Brit on the show after the amount of abuse Tyler has been throwing and blasphemy and slander at the EU teams. But like I said, guys, drop us a like in the comments and give us as a subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. We'll be back next week for another episode of Showstopper.